Kansho.
Good morning. Today is March 19th, 2023, and we welcome you to New York Buddhist Church's Higan-e Spring Equinox service streamed live on YouTube and Facebook. We will begin with quiet sitting. Please sit up straight, feet flat on the floor, calm your mind, and follow your breath. We will begin with Sambujo on page 8, followed by Hyobyakumon, dedication. Today's chant is Sambutsuge on page 47, Tan-Nembutsu Ekoku merit transference, followed by Vandana T. Sarana on page 7. Our reading today is the Six Paramitas, which is a handout, I believe, and our Dharma talk by Reverend Ron Miyamura. We will end the service singing Gathas Onkokusan 2 on page 134 and Nembutsu on page 135. Namu Amida-butsu.
Good morning, everyone. We respectfully call upon Tathagata Amida to enter this dojo as we joyfully scatter flowers of welcome. We respectfully call upon Tathagata Shakyamuni to enter this dojo as we joyfully scatter flowers of welcome. We respectfully call upon the Tathagatas of the 10 directions to enter this dojo as we joyfully scatter flowers of welcome. On this occasion of the New York Buddhist Church's observance of Spring Higan, or the spring equinox, we are gathered to adorn the shrine of Amida, burn incense, chant the sacred writings, and deepen our understanding of the Buddha Dharma. During the spring and fall equinoxes, when the hours of the day and night are equal, the sun symbolically rises in the east and sets in the west towards the direction of the Pure Land. We gather to listen and meditate upon the teachings of the Buddha Dharma as clarified and transmitted to us by Shinran Shonin. With deepest reverence and thankfulness for the all-embracing wisdom and compassion of Amida Buddha, we affirm the 3 homages. Please repeat after me. I go to the Buddha for guidance. Go to the Buddha. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I go to the Sangha for guidance. Please repeat the Buddha's name. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you so much. Turn to page 47 in the service book for Sambutsuge.
and be born in the realm of peace and serenity.
Nybc. Nybc. Nybc.
Namandat, 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 namandat. And now please rise for the Vandana and Sarana, which can be found on page 7. Please be seated. And now we will have the reading of the Six Paramitas using the handout.
Let us read together the Six Paramitas. Dana, giving. May I be generous and helpful. Shila, guidance. May I be guided by Buddhist precepts. Kshanti, tolerance. May I regard the mistakes of others with sympathy. Virya, perseverance. May I do the best in all things. dhyana, meditation. May I reflect deeply on my life through the Buddhist teachings. Prajna, insight. May I understand the meaning of Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.
And now it is my privilege to introduce our guest speaker today, who should need no introduction, but nonetheless, is Reverend Ron Miyamura, who is our supervising minister here at the New York Buddhist Church, and who is the resident minister of the Midwest Buddhist Temple in Chicago. And he has recently announced his retirement for the end of this year. And Reverend Ron has been a minister in some form or another for over 50 years, so this is really something. He's, besides being our guidance and a resource for us, he's been out there for a long time in the Midwest and in the Twin Cities. He graduated from the University of California at Berkeley and then studied in the ministerial candidate program at IBS millennia ago, and then continued at Rikoku University in Kyoto. And he was received Kaikyoshi, or the highest ordination in our tradition, around 1973, I think it was. And that's a very long time. At that point, he was appointed to become the associate minister at the Midwest Buddhist Temple in Chicago, and upon the death of the resident minister there, Reverend Kono, he became the resident minister and stayed there until 1981, at which time he pursued some other career moves, but he always was a minister. He always worked with the resident minister of Chicago to supervise the Midwest Buddhist Sangha. I mean, not Midwest, the Twin Cities Buddhist Sangha, and then eventually was recalled to become resident minister of Midwest Buddhist Temple in 2011, where he has stayed until today, and he has been our supervising minister a couple of times, and we are very, very grateful, and we always enjoy having him here. And please enjoy his talk.
Good morning. Gary made me a little bit older than I am. Not quite 50 years. Not over 50 years. I actually started in August of 1973, so it's coming up on 50 years. But it definitely shows. I forgot my Dharma talk sitting on my desk at home. So I'm using an iPad for the first time with what I could remember from memory last night. It shows, yeah, it is time to retire. But I'm very glad to be able to be here this morning. It is, a privilege and honor to be here at the New York Buddhist Church. It's always been a mysterious place. When I first came to Chicago, Reverend Kono was at the Midwest Temple in Chicago. Reverend Tamai was in Denver, and this scary guy, Reverend Seki, was in New York. They were mystery giants. These three ministers that were not on the West Coast, Tamai, Kono, and Seki. And New York was always, the first, the leader, and many good memories of Reverend Seki and New York Buddhist Church. I visited irregularly. Back then, of course, travel was difficult and did not get to New York too often. I do remember driving through Seabrook, New York, and going up to Boston and across very early in my career. But this place was always a wonderful place, and the statue in front is always so impressive of Shinran. So I have fond memories of New York, and I look forward to visiting again as a retired minister. Thank you. No, I'll be a guest speaker again back in May for Gotai, but it might be on Zoom. But Ohigan is a holiday, a Buddhist holiday. Ohigan refers to the other shore of enlightenment versus this shore of samsara, or the world of change, our human world. The other shore of enlightenment, the Amida's Pure Land, and enlightenment itself. And Ohigan happens twice a year. It happens at the equinox, of spring and the fall equinox. And I think this tradition comes from the time when the Buddha was alive. It'd be the rainy season and the dry season, that the Buddha and his disciples during the dry season would go from village to village. They were pilgrims. They would, spread the Dharma. But in the rainy season, they would select a village to stay for about 4 or 5 months, depending on the year. And they would stay there, and then at the end of the rainy season, they would have a festival and thank the village and then share the Dharma, and then they would start their pilgrimage again. So that was twice a year. So it falls into our normal, we don't do that exactly, but the idea of twice a year, taking a pause, reflect on ourselves, look inside of ourselves at Ohigan, because Ohigan is the time of year when the days and nights are equal. The weather is supposed to be mild. Emphasis on supposed to be. But it is not. It's certainly not super cold or super hot. It is spring and fall. So at the time when the world is more at balance, this is a time we look into ourselves and say, are we balanced? Are we okay? Or do I need to shift one way or the other? We try to recenter ourselves, look into ourselves, reflect, and this is Ohigan. This is why we have this holiday. But the origins of Ohigan, are with it. With Ohigan comes a very famous story. And I'm sure all of you have heard it before, and I will repeat it because it is worth repeating. And it is definitely been my tradition on holidays is to tell the story of that holiday. So Ohigan is really about the story of two rivers and a narrow white path. The two rivers is the river of fire, the river of water, and a narrow white path. And in this story, of course, it is exactly that, a story, a legend. In the story, there's a man traveling in the desert. And then he comes upon these beasts that want to eat him. So they start chasing him. The man starts running. And then he comes upon bandits who want to beat and rob him. So he continues running and running and running. And then he's getting tired. And then he comes upon this river, this very unusual river, that it's actually two rivers. From where he's standing, on one side is a river of fire that flows endlessly. And on the other, when he looks the other way, there's an endless river of water. And he looks back and he sees the beasts and the bandits chasing him. what does he do? What does he do? And he sees a narrow white path. It is said to be a 4-inch wide white path crossing over the river between the river of fire and the river of water. He is frozen. He doesn't know what to do. He's in crisis. He's being chased. He will be eaten, maybe, beaten, robbed. Who knows what will happen? He can't run towards the river of fire. It seems endless. Can't run to the river of water. It seems endless along the shore. But there's a narrow white path and a voice. He hears a voice out of the sky that says, trust yourself. Trust yourself. Walk on the narrow white path. You will be safe. You will be free of the bandits and beasts. And so he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to do. This is a moment of crisis. And so he takes the first step. Tentatively, carefully, the river of fire is whopping flames and the river of water is splashing up on the white path. And he takes another step and another, slowly, carefully, and another. And then he hears another voice that says, that's fine, trust yourself. Come to the other shore. I will make sure you are safe. And so he takes another step, and he crosses to the other shore. End of story. Of course, the story has much significance, much meaning. And I think that's the important part, of course. You know, the beasts and the desert is the world we live in. We don't know, we always seem to be wanting more water, more food. We're living in the desert. The beasts and the bandits represent our selfish desires. Never-ending selfish desires. The river of fire represents our anger. The river of water represents the river of greed. You know, these are the things that drive us, anger and greed. And the white path, of course, is the path of the Nembutsu, to call the name of Amida Buddha, the name that is given to us, a gift to us, that allows us to have a path out of this world of suffering, the world of greed, of anger. The first voice, of course, is the voice of Shakyamuni Buddha, introducing us to Buddhism. Trust ourselves to start on this path. And then the second voice is the voice of Amida. Amida assuring us that it is safe. Follow this path and you will reach the other shore, the shore of enlightenment, the pure land of Amida. So this is sort of a synopsis of how we are. We are all that person, that man in crisis, being chased by anger and greed, seems surrounded by selfish desires, and yet there is a reminder that there is a path out of that, an escape, if we follow the narrow white path of the Nembutsu. But this is, of course, one of my favorite stories, because in this story, it's one of the first Buddhist stories about a lay person who remains a lay person in the story. In many stories, you know, the Buddha does something and the person then becomes a disciple and a monk or a nun. But in this story, the person crosses the other shore and remains as a lay person, a normal, ordinary person. And I think that is significant because it reminds us, Shin Buddhism in particular, is for ordinary people, that we are not monks and nuns. We are human beings with all the anger, greed, hatred, ignorance that we cannot escape. Yet there is a way out, a narrow white path. And the idea of Amida inviting us or telling us to go to the Pure Land, go to the other shore, just as you are. He didn't require that man to take precepts or to do anything special. Just cross to the other side, just as you are. Or in Japanese we say, sono mama, just as you are. Or to translate into what I use as meaning is, come as you are to the temple. Come as you are to the temple. Come as you are. We don't require, anything. There are no limitations, no prerequisites. Come as you are, with all your limitations, with all your anger, all your ignorance. Come and share the Dharma, just as you are. And this is what I think Shin Buddhism is trying to do, is to invite us all in. And this is, the reminder that we get with Ohigan. Just a side note, factoid, I guess. Leave you with two factoids. No, I'd just give one. I was reminded the other day, we hear about Buddha's sutras, the words of the Buddha, that why are the words of the Buddhas, we repeat the Sambutsuge that we chanted this morning comes from the larger sutra, the words of the Buddha. And why is it important? It's the way we transmit the teachings by repeating it, so we chant the sutras over and over. But going back one step further, what does the word sutra mean? It is, it's a Sanskrit word, and Sanskrit is a Indo-European language, so it is related to English. So we have sutra it means thread, and for example, what we would know sutra today as suture. If you were a doctor, when they sew up a wound or an operation, they use thread to close the wound. That is a suture. It is the thread that ties things together. So we need to remember that there is this thread from the historical Buddha to today that ties us together. And but it is important that it is that thread. We have the sutras that we keep going forward. In closing, I'd like to introduce, or probably it's not introduction, but a reminder that, I left the ministry for 29 years and came back full-time in 2011. And in that time, I've always looked for words that mean something, because Buddhism to me is not what the Buddha said to be taken literally. We need to look and understand, what did he mean? What do the teachings mean? And that's why I've used the phrase, come as you are. I mean, that has always been important to me, come as you are. But I've looked around and other ministers and other teachers, and I've, of course, I can't say that. I was going to say I stole phrases from others. I borrowed. and I will not return, but I will borrow phrases and quotes from others, which, if they resonate with me. And one of them is from my friend Reverend Bob Oshta that retired from the Sacramento Betsuin. And in retirement, he and his wife Patty both became the chaplains of the California State Legislature. And I was watching one of the videos when he first started. It's on YouTube somewhere, of course. But he gave a nice short meditation before this beginning of the state legislature. And he closed with the phrase, Namo Hamidamutsu, with gratitude and kindness beyond words. Not Namo Hamidamutsu, we normally translate it. I take refuge in, and then Amida and Buddha. But what does it mean? And I thought, I'm sure it's attributed to Reverend Bob, but I'm sure it's from his wife, Reverend Patty. Much more creative. Bob is a good smooth mouth. Patty is the brain cell. If you knew the couple, you would love them. So yeah, they're great. And I can't do it the way Reverend Bob can. He has the perfect timing, the intonation and timing that he closed the session with. Namo Hamidamutsu, with gratitude and kindness beyond words. And I'd like to close with that today. Namo Hamidamutsu, with gratitude and kindness beyond words. Namo, 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 namo.
Okay, so that was pretty wonderful, right? And with gratitude and kindness beyond words, something to really resonate. And also the famous "come as you are." We always say that too. Come as you are. So thank you, Reverend Ron, for that beautiful, beautiful, beautiful Dharma talk for this Higan-e spring equinox. Higan. And now, please join us, if you can stand, for the Onkokusan, which is on Gatha on page 134, followed by Nembutsu on page 135.
Miyiamura.
please be seated. And now we come to a special portion of our service where we like to greet first-timers. And so if this is your first time visiting us today, please stand and introduce yourself and maybe tell us how you came to join us today. Anybody? All old hands? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're all old-timers, so that's cool. So at this point, we also like to encourage people who have not renewed your membership to do so. That it's very important. The Sokai is coming up. If you are not a member paid up for 2022, you can still get in there, I think, and then also make a contribution for 2023. Membership is annual, just so you know. In upcoming weeks, the next big service will be Hanamatsuri on April 9th, I think it is. And we will have a special guest on that day, Reverend Kurt Rai, who is the minister of the Ekoku Buddhist Temple in Virginia. He'll be joining us that day. And that should be very special. We will have the Hanamido, the flower shrine for baby Buddha. And it's a perfect day for kids to join in. And we'll start decorating around 10 a.m. So if any children would like to come and help decorate the Hanamido with flowers, we'll be doing that around 10 a.m. that day. So mark it and keep it in the back of your mind. Are there any other announcements that anyone would like to make? No announcements? Okay, well, that's good. So please join us after the service upstairs for refreshments, and see you next time. Have a very happy spring. Very, very happy spring, and thank you for coming. And at this time, I'd like to thank the greeters today are Hoshina Seki and Josephine Seki. The piano was played by Nobuko Kodama-san. Our tech team is Carl and David, and Lily. Let's not forget, and they keep us on the air, and keep us all joined together, and allow us to be heard even in here, and that's good. And then and the MAs who joined together, we did the chanting together, and once again our very special guest and mentor and friend, Reverend Ron Miyamura, for coming and visiting us today. Thank you very much. And the greatest thanks always is to you for coming here. Because without you, what's the point? What's the point? And we should always remember, the ministers don't make the service. Everyone makes the service. All together. Namo Amida Butsu. Okay, so please join me in one more final Gassho. With gratitude for being able to refresh ourselves at these equinoxes and get back on the right path. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.